All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're staying safe out there. Welcome to our home safari here at the Cincinnati Zoo. This is our Galapagos Tortoise Edition. So if you've been here before, you might have met our 4 Galapagos tortoises here. My name's Jenna. This is Dustin. We're 2 of your herpetology keepers, or reptile keepers, here at the Cincinnati Zoo. So our responsibility is to care for the many amphibians and reptiles here on zoo grounds. So these 4 Galapagos tortoises have been with us. They're almost 12 years old now. We got them when they were roughly 6 months old and the size of a softball. As you can see now, they are much bigger than that. Our largest tortoise weighs about 150 pounds. That's the tortoise all the way on the right. And then our smallest tortoise is right next to her, weighing at around 120 pounds. Now these tortoises have gone through a wide variety of names since they've been here. You may have known them as different colors, different Harry Potter names, Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. The Reptile House, we actually refer to them as different names. We have Nobby here, all the way on the left, followed by Bruno, Michelle, and Husker. So Husker there and Michelle, we think might be females. It's a little bit hard to tell since they're still a little bit young, but they have very, very short tails compared to Bruno and Nobby over here, which have very, very large tails, which is a good indicator of a male. As you can see, they love to eat their greens. Their eyesight's probably their best sense. If they see something green or red out there, you best bet they're going to go right for it. You might be able to hear the crunching sound here. I think it's a little bit satisfying. So if you have ever been through our Galapagos tortoise encounters, you might remember us telling you, hey, if you have some brightly colored nail polish or shoelaces, to keep an eye out. Although they're not aggressive, anything with a mouth can bite, and I sure would not want to be on the receiving end of a bite like this. Now their hearing isn't so great, and their sense of smell is all right. If you ever see one of our tortoises go up to something unfamiliar and smell, they'll kind of smash their faces up against it to kind of figure out what it is. It does look a little bit goofy, because like I said, they do rely a lot on their eyesight. Now, a lot of people don't think that reptiles can have different personalities, but they actually do when it comes to giant tortoises like these. Nobby and Bruno are very much into the attention from their keepers. They like to follow us around while we do our day-to-day tasks. They like getting their neck scratches when we give them attention. Usually they like food a little bit more, but sometimes they'll like both. Husker over there with Dustin is a very curious tortoise. You might see her being a little bit mouthy to different objects that she might see in the yard. She's a very curious tortoise and likes to investigate everything. These guys don't have hands, so they do explore the world with their mouths. And then Michelle over there, she is our smallest tortoise. We say she's the smallest, but the sweetest. She just likes getting her neck scratched, and she's the first one to greet us every morning, which is kind of nice. You guys got to share a little bit. Oh, thank you. Get some more greens in here. My clip fell off. Feel free to ask any questions as this segment goes on. Dustin or myself will be happy to answer them for you. If you guys have any questions about our tortoises, how we take care of them, what our day-to-day routines are, things like that. These guys are pretty lazy animals. They do spend a lot of time sleeping. Galapagos tortoises in the wild usually spend around 16 hours a day sleeping, depending on the time of day, the season it is. If they're not sleeping, they're usually eating. See, Carmen asks, what's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? That's a great question. So tortoises typically are seen as land-dwelling animals. So we get a good look at their feet here. You'll notice they're big and stumpy. They've got some really large scales here, good for climbing over rocks and land, whereas turtles have very webbed feet, great for swimming appropriately. They also have very different diets. Galapagos tortoises are usually vegetarian. They have been seen to eat some meat, but usually you're going to see them eating different flowers and foliage on the islands. We offer them a lot of produce here. Aquatic turtles will be eating a lot of fish, other meat, but you'll see them eating some vegetation as well. I know Emma and Sarah had a few great questions that they asked me earlier. Are these guys endangered, and how many species of a Galapagos tortoise are there? So these guys are endangered. There are roughly 10 to 11 subspecies. It's kind of debated exactly how many there are due to DNA and such, but there are roughly 11 species of Galapagos tortoise. The others have gone extinct as far as we know, but these guys are endangered. There's currently a Charles Darwin Research Station on the Galapagos Islands that does help with these guys in conservation efforts on the island. Ella asks, how long do they live? So these tortoises, like I said, are only 11 years old, which is very young. They're going to outlive you and I. They're going to probably live over 150 years old, which is kind of incredible. So I'll see them grow up, but I won't be able to see them in their long-lasting mature days. Joey asks, how big do they get? So that's a great question. So like I was talking about earlier, we think we have 2 males and 2 females. Looks like we got some excitement on the bucket. That eyesight I was talking about. We're not quite sure since they are still not quite sexually mature, but these guys, if males, will get around 500 pounds. The females typically 250 to 300 pounds. So pretty large considering our largest right now is 150 pounds. They have a lot of growing to do. And you guys who come here to the zoo will be able to see them grow a little bit each year. I'm sure when you saw them come 5 years ago, they were much smaller than they are now. We actually, for a long time, felt that they were growing a little too fast, so we actually altered their diet. So the good thing about being at a botanical garden is we have a fantastic horticulture team who helps us pick out browse that's great for these tortoises. They love honeysuckle, grapevine, mulberry. We're growing cactus pads, prickly pear cactus here in the Galop yard for them to eat. So they won't just get produce, but they also get hay and browse. That way they can get all the nutrients they need and not have to just eat produce. Sam asks, can they swim? They're not excellent swimmers, but Michelle here loves to take a dip in our pool that's in our Galop yard. So these guys recently got access to a huge yard a couple years ago, part of the More Home to Roam campaign. And they have a giant pool that they can actually float in. So they have a little fat layer below their shells that they can actually float with. It's a big theory that's to the Galapagos Islands off of the coast of South America by floating just with their shells or on vegetation rafts. So indirectly, kind of swim. Oh, goodness. James says, how does their shell grow?
Does their shell grow or do they get new ones?
That's a great question. So we get a lot of questions about can they leave their shell like you see in the cartoons. These guys are with their shell their whole lives. It grows with them. It's the same one. It's kind of it's a major part of a turtle's life. It protects them, makes them feel safe. It's like their own home, so they never leave it. There you go, buddy. Let's see. Faye asks, who is their favorite keeper? Well, I'm a little biased. I don't know. I am their primary keeper, so I do take care of these guys every day. I visit them multiple times a day because they do like that interaction with people. It's a little bit different than other reptiles who couldn't care less if you go into their habitat or not. These guys, when we do walk out, they perk their heads up even if they're sleeping. Usually it's because they think I have food, which usually I do. But sometimes I like me for me. I don't know. I'm going to go over here. Cameron asks, where are their ears? It's a good question. Dustin, you want to show them where their ears are?
Sure.
On
right
Nobby here.
They have very odd ears. Oh, watch out. They're like the back. You can see what's called a tympanic membrane, so it's very different. But that's basically their eardrum there. So like Jenna said earlier, their hearing is not good really at all. They're very much a visual-based animal. So really attracted to those brightly colored things like cactus fruit, things like that. So whenever we have strawberries or apples or carrots, they go crazy. They absolutely love that stuff. But you can actually see their mouths too here, and their mouths, they don't actually have teeth. There's no turtle or tortoise that has teeth. They have a beak, just like a parrot. It's made up of keratin, the same stuff that is in your fingernails. And so it's very well designed to snip grasses and plants, and yeah, same thing with their shell too, made of keratin as well.
I think we had a question from Kieran. Do they eat meat?
Do they eat meat? Yeah, so on occasion they've been seen eating meat, but it's not a main food source at all. So that plant material is 95% of what they're going to be eating. But if they come across a carcass or something like that in the wild, they have been seen eating it for extra minerals and vitamins, things like that. So opportunistic feeders. They live on an island, so it's very limited how much food is available to them.
You might have seen different types or species of Galapagos tortoises around other zoos. We really have one of the most common that you might find. Another very different form of Galapagos is the saddleback tortoise. So these guys were part of the observations of Charles Darwin when it came to natural selection. So you notice these tortoises in particular have very domed shells. They're from a very humid habitat, a lot of foliage on the ground, a lot of flowers, as they pretty much be grazing all day. Whereas the saddleback tortoises is a little bit of more of a gap between the shell and their necks, which allows them to reach up really high and grab leaves and plants from higher up on the ground. So there's a little bit of a difference in there. So you'll see they also love their scratches, like I was talking about earlier. Another interesting thing about the island is they have a mutualistic relationship with finches there. The finches will actually kind of pitter-patter on their shells. Whoop. They'll stand up really tall, and the finches will actually get all the ticks and insects that are wedged into their wrinkly skin here. They've got some leathery, wrinkly skin. It's a great place for insects to find. So the finches get a nice buffet, and the tortoises get those pests off of their skin, which is kind of nice. Gabby asks, how many eggs do they lay? So these guys, you'd think that they would lay a lot of eggs, seeing as how big they are, but typically they lay about 25, if that, 25 eggs. They're very long-lived animals. Currently, they don't really have a lot of predators, especially when they're big sizes like this. Now, when they're younger, they do have, they have to worry about rats, feral cats, other birds maybe preying on the eggs. The biggest thing these tortoises worry about right now is probably competition with goats that are on the island, trying to eat the same types of food that these guys are. But back when these guys were really threatened and endangered, it's because they can actually go 6 months to a year without water or food. So that was they're probably an easy source for meat for merchants and people traveling on ships. So since now, they've actually been monitored. If you go there to visit the Galapagos Islands, you have to be with a tour guide. They're very well protected now. So I'm hoping they make a good comeback. So it looks like now we do a little bit of a bath time. In the wild, these guys do hang out in mud wallows, so they like to hang out in the water, just like Michelle, who likes to hang out in the pool over there. And sometimes they do like a good bath, so we just suds them up a little bit, get them all going. They're not going to pay much attention to me right now because they're still working on their greens here, but sometimes they get pretty muddy, and it's sometimes nice to just give them a little wash. Oh man, I'm going to fight over some food.
So Reed asks, how fast are they? So Jenna, what do you think?
I think what we were saying was like 0.16 miles per hour.
Very slow. They're heavy body
Very
animals.
slow.
Yeah.
As they get bigger, they'll get slower, right, Dustin?
Yeah, and their shell is made up of bone, of course, so that's what helps defend them. And their spine is actually attached to the shell too. But the bone is really different than most bone. It's hollow, and so it does make it a little bit more lightweight. But
Oh,
the
gosh.
top part here is made of keratin again, the part of your fingernail, similar to that too. But yeah, like I said before, they can float,
shell bath.
but they're certainly not fast.
Yeah, was it the average person is like 2 miles per hour?
Yeah.
Something like that. That gives you an indication. They like to climb. You wouldn't think it. Nobby in general has a habit of wedging himself in places you would not expect a tortoise to wedge himself. He's a very curious tortoise. He likes to explore and climb. Let's see. Jackson, do they hide in their shell when scared? Yeah, a lot of tortoises and turtles will do that. That is a pretty big plus of having a shell. Sometimes in the morning, they'll be sleeping and I walk in, I might accidentally startle one. They go into their shell pretty quick and they make kind of like the air comes out and they make a hissing. It's just the air coming out. But then they quickly come back out when they realize that there's no danger. It's just a little bit of startling.
You can see the front of their legs are actually a lot tougher than the back. Use that to cover their face and defend them. So, but these guys don't
Can't
really
eat
go
the
in their
sponge.
shells at all.
No sponge eating. Grace asks, are they born with a shell? Yes, they are, and they're the cutest little shells you'll ever see. Pretty much, they look exactly like this, except very miniature. And why is their neck so long? That's a great question. So these guys have really long necks to be able to reach any type of foliage that they can find. So just like the flowers we have lining the edge over here, if they really wanted to, they could try and reach up and grab as much food as they can. And that's what their necks are for. It's a really good adaptation for them to survive if there's not a lot of flowers or leaves that they can find on the ground. They have to be able to find it somewhere. And Jay asked, do they live in families? Pretty much the Galapagos tortoises are pretty solitary. They'll come together to breed. Sometimes you'll see them in their mud wallows in groups, but they're not, they're not there for any family-related reasons. They just happen to be there around the same time. And then, are they good pets? No, these guys are typically not good pets. As you can see, they will try and bite or eat anything that is colorful. So if you have them at a home, they're going to pretty much eat everything you have. They really don't care what it is. They'll just try and stick it in their mouths pretty much and try to eat it if they can. They also get very big. Like I said, these guys are not even close to full grown. They're going to get 3 times bigger if we do have a few males here. That's quite a lot of tortoise to take care of your personal home. So
They're strong too.
very strong animals. They can push us around if they want to.
Knock down most fences. Yeah.
Climb over most barriers. Yeah, odds are they'll be gone. All right, so we do hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Home Safari, Galapagos Tortoise. We do challenge you at home to make your own Galapagos Tortoise shell. If you want to decorate however you like, you can post it onto the comments here on the Facebook Live or on our website. Anywhere you can. If you want other ways to support our zoo, feel free to make a donation. We do appreciate it very much. Be sure to be here tomorrow, 3 p.m., same time. We'll be doing another home safari, and we hope you enjoyed the Galapagos tortoises today.